Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. Thank you for joining us. Charlie Arnot here with the Center for Food Integrity, and thank you for being a part of the fastest 15 minutes in food with Dr. David Hughes. At the Center for Food Integrity, CFI, we work with organizations and people across all sectors of food and agriculture with a real focus on building trust in today's food system. We are so grateful and privileged to have one of those individuals with us every single month. Dr. David Hughes is reliable and relentless in helping us understand what's happening around the world, especially in the UK and Europe, which is fascinating considering that we all just heard about the new tariffs as of yesterday. So, David, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And where in the world are you today?
Well, I'm in England, which is good news. I'm in the southwest of England. It's a little county called Devon, and with my younger son, and we're buying a pub. Would you call it a pub or a tavern? And it's our second one. We're good to go, as they say. And
Good for you.
mhm.
And do you have Newcastle on tap? I guess that would be my question.
Oh, that rots the bottom of buckets.
All right. Now, remember, if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. Lots of opportunity and lots of information to cover today. But we do want to give you the opportunity if you'd like to ask a question. Topic number one, David, it has been a long, cold winter here in the Midwest. Talking to colleagues in Wisconsin and Minnesota yesterday, and it was still snowing. We're very
Mm.
happy that spring is finally arriving, albeit a bit slowly. So what's happening this month in your part of the world?
Right. Well, actually, we just had March, which was the sunniest month and the driest month, actually. So we're well pleased with that. So we're into springtime, but you wouldn't know it. The UK farming and food industry don't have a spring in their step, I can assure you. Why? The Food and Drink Federation, which is like a club for major food manufacturers, they do their survey on business confidence, and it hasn't been lower for many a long year.
Wow.
Why? Well, as you can imagine, as you've already mentioned, right at the top of the list is their concern about tariff wars with you guys, creating confusion. What's the impact going to be on trade? Will it hurt us? Yes, it will. So they don't like that, but also they've got an increasing tax burden, courtesy of our current government. Mentioned before on national insurance, wage cost hikes, etc. And then coming up in the next couple of months is the packaging tax. It has the odd phrase associated with it, which is the extended producer responsibility for packaging. And that's the government saying, and probably quite rightly, okay, if you produce food, you are responsible for the costs associated with recycling the packaging associated with your food products. And it's a substantial tax. Other things that are causing them to be more than grumpy. We're well into retail grocery price wars here. The hard discounters are still relentless in keeping their foot down on the big supermarket chains. So margins are really, really squeezed. But then, and if I can just to chip in, it's also in the UK, we pay a lot of money for our electricity. And it's an odd story, Charlie. I mean, last year, the UK produced more renewable energy than any other type of energy. So we're 52% on renewable energy. That's energy from the wind and the sun. And of course, that's brilliant. But unfortunately, the wind doesn't blow every week or day, and the sun certainly doesn't shine on a regular basis. And so we require natural gas as the supplementary fuel, if you will, and that's almost all imported. We do have a nuclear energy sector, but that's declining to a degree. So our actual electricity prices are based on the international price of natural gas. It's sort of marginal pricing, if you will. And as a result of this, I mean, to my dismay, the UK pays 3 times more per megawatt of electricity than you guys. 3 times.
Wow.
3 times. And actually, we pay 100% more than most EU countries. And of course, the food industry is energy heavy. It's really, really tough for them. And you can sense it. There's the sort of dismay, and the tariff war, or whatever we want to call it, certainly doesn't help matters.
Very challenging. Very challenging. Well, David, thank
Oh,
you for that. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah, please.
just sorry, just to add on that consumers aren't happy either, and this is an odd thing. In the UK, I think in the US, is your tax year on a calendar basis, like January
It
1?
is. Yep.
Yeah. Whereas in the UK, our tax year starts next week, April 6th. And you're not you think an odd day for it to start. Well, and it goes back to, for goodness sake, 1752.
Hmm.
So, hundreds of years ago, when we changed from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar.
And what was the reason for that? Do you have any idea?
I think it was because it was Easter kept getting later and later and later,
Oh.
and so we switched, and then suddenly April 6th is tax day. And what's more, for consumers, key bills all change price, if you will, on tax day. So, for
Hmm.
example, your water bills, your energy bills, your council tax, which is like your local tax, even our car tax, and oddly enough, our cell mobile phone charges and internet charges, they're all adjusted on April the 6th. And if I look for this year, for most households, that will mean they're going to have to pay the better part of an extra $600 for
Wow.
those extra costs. And, I would guess 60% of households are really stretched at the moment. And that's not good news for them. So we're an unhappy lot at the moment, but spring coming. So, let's have a smiley face.
Fingers crossed and hope for the best and go to the pub and have another pint.
Yeah,
That
no,
might be
quite right.
the best prescription that we can have so far, at least when it gets open. We're seeing something similar with energy here, not in terms of pricing, which is a godsend for us, but in terms of consumption, primarily driven by AI. And so we're seeing a resurgence in small nuclear power plants in an effort to meet the enormity of the energy demand. And as you noted, you cannot be in the food business without consuming energy and water. Those are the two
No.
resources that are absolutely essential. And as we're seeing, rising prices, we use the consumer price index and other measures for what we're paying for goods and consumer confidence, and they've been rattled as well. But it's interesting to note, I'd like to learn a little bit more about how you take a look at what's being developed in food prices in the UK.
Right. Okay. So, like you, as you mentioned, we've got a consumer price index, and we've had one since 1947. And it's a wonderful sort of English phrase, on a basket of goods. That seems wonderfully old-fashioned. And the fact of the matter is that it's so old-fashioned. 280 price collectors get on their bikes and into their cars, and they go around the UK collecting prices every month. So back in 1947, when we started this, there were 280 items in the basket of goods that make up our consumer price index. Now there are 750
Hmm.
items. So that's the base, if you will. And I'm always fascinated because the combination of products that make up the basket of goods changes through time, and it's a great indication of consumer trends for my mind. And so I thought you might be interested if we look at over the last year, what were the new products that came into our consumer price index, or the prices thereof. So, for example, an air fryer is now part of the index. Rice cookies, gluten-free bread,
Hmm.
pulled pork. And then if I go out of food, yoga mats. Now, for goodness sake, so the price of yoga mats are included in our consumer price index, and virtual reality headsets. And of course, if you add
Interesting.
stuff in, thank the Lord, they also toss some stuff out. So what is now not included? Well, let's start with ground turkey, or we would call it minced turkey, rotisserie chicken. So I thought that was odd.
It is odd.
Home bakeware. Baking was very fashionable during COVID, but it sort of slipped and slipped badly. And so that's now been turfed out. Hand sanitizers and DVD movie rental, long gone. And if I sort of reflect, for somebody my age, if I reflect back to the early 50s when I was a little boy, cod liver oil was right up there in our consumer price index, but that went the way of all flesh, as indeed did Brussels sprouts, the love to hate for many people.
Yep.
And then from a feminine point of view, ladies' corsets were right there in the consumer price index all the way up to 1970, but then they were taken away. So that's our consumer price index. Actually, while I'm on the sort of topic about food prices, intriguingly, and across Europe at the moment, consumers continue to be really, really cross about higher prices, particularly for food. And I mention it because there are three countries not aligned: Sweden, Croatia, and Bulgaria, where consumers currently are launching a boycott of major
Hmm.
supermarkets because they're so irritated, they're so angry about the high price of food. And again, it reminds me we need somebody to blame, and often as not, it's the supermarkets. And whether or not they should be have the finger pointed at them is another matter, because it comes down to, for example, in Sweden, they're really angry about the price of cocoa, chocolate, coffee, olive oil, and yes, there are big price issues there, but I just don't see the link with supermarkets. But that's by the by. It's more related to poor weather in the countries which are responsible for most of the production. And I think that's another issue, Charlie, as I look around, that if you look at some of those major food commodities, frequently the vast majority of production is in one or two or three countries. And if those countries are in trouble, for example, severe climate or whatever it might be, then we all know about it very quickly because prices hike.
Yeah, we're going to struggle with that until we can find more resilient supply chains. And I know some of the global food companies are looking for other regions of the world that have similar climates to
Mhm.
increase their resiliency. But coffee continues to increase in price here, and people are grumpy in the morning when they
Yeah.
can't get their cup of joe for the price that they had expected. So we will not likely see any relief in that in the short term. That one will be very interesting to continue to follow. But again,
Yeah.
speaking of kind of consumer expectations, health and nutrition are always of interest. There continues to be some growing interest in that, and particularly using apps as it relates to health and nutrition. They're becoming more sophisticated, easier to use. You can track all kinds of things. So, what's your take on that, and what are you seeing as it relates to the apps for health and nutrition?
Well, one of the one that's at the top of the league table, if you will, in terms of popularity of nutritional apps is called Zoe. So Zoe. It's a personal nutrition app. It focuses on gut health, and it is available in the USA. And as I understand, it's growing pretty quickly. So Zoe supplies sensors to those who are part and parcel of them to quantify a person's gut microbiome, and it looks at blood fat, blood sugar, and it can measure the response of blood fat and blood sugar to food intake.
Hmm.
It's a bit messy, not least because you have to submit a poo sample, if you'll pardon it. And it's not without controversy. I'm sure the same in the US. That I mean, many health experts say, for goodness sake, you know, why don't we just stick to taking healthy eating advice? And there's no sound scientific evidence to show that these products, these services from the apps that are actually going to improve health. But mind you, in history, I think we've shown that we don't respond well to general advice. That what we're looking for, and I think that's why Zoe is so popular at the moment, is that it's directed specifically at you, and it's based on your own gut for one way or another. And so it's doing extraordinarily well, although it's hardly cheap by our standards. So in the UK, it costs about just under $400 to join and
Wow.
$25 a month. So you've got to believe in it, and but clearly some Zoe people do. But it's very influential. Actually, the Zoe's founder is a guy called Professor Tim Spector. He's a epidemiologist from the University of London, and he's forever on the screen here and much thought of. And he's taking through Zoe, he's taking a new approach. I think you might like this, Charlie, because it's so sort of contentious. He's taking a new approach to ultra processed foods. And what Zoe are trying to do is to reduce the scaremongering that's associated about UPFs or processed foods in general. And so what's he doing? He's got a processed food risk scale.
Good for him.
So on his scale, you've got no risk, low risk, moderate risk, or high risk products. And essentially, as far as I can see, he's building on the Brazilian Nova UPF work, but trying to sort of just make it a little simpler. And it's based on energy intake rate and the degree of can I get it right? Palatability of addictive ingredient combinations. So, for example, what would be in his no-risk foods? Unsalted butter, kimchi or many kimchis, organic dark chocolate. That's considered no risk. What would be high risk? Most white sliced breads, chicken nuggets, and then strangely Cadbury's dairy milk chocolate, which is so popular in the UK. But let me give you for instance, he's trying to say to mums, for example, who are buying breakfast cereal for their children, saying there are high risk and no risk breakfast cereal. So the no risk cereal might be shredded wheat. The high risk cereal might be, perhaps no surprise, Cocoa Puffs. What do I think about? I mean, it worries me slightly that no risk foods, like shredded wheat, God forlove it, might also be low taste too, but that's another matter.
It is indeed.
I'm not sure if he's he wants to remove this concern about this hyper concern about processed foods, and this is his contribution. That maybe overcomplicates. Let's see.
Yeah, it's interesting, David. You mentioned both supermarkets, and we certainly see ultra processed foods. We like a villain in every story, and right now they can be the villain in those stories because they're convenient and people are looking for that. And when it comes to nutrition, we're all looking for the easy button. But every dietitian that I've spoken to, when I ask, what's the one thing people can do to improve their diet? Eat more fruits and vegetables. It's not that complicated. It's really not that complicated. So thank you, David, so much. Hope the pub opening continues to go well. And thanks to everybody for joining us for the fastest 15 minutes in food. We hope you will be back and join us again in May for another edition of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye, Charlie.